Ayo, what's up, my peeps? Thought I'd come at you again with a little pre-workout preaching session. It's crazy how much, one thing can change everything, right? This morning I woke up feeling like, I was 2 steps away from being classified as a zombie, right? Kind of just like gone. Then all of a sudden you listen to one song and it's like, damn, I can smell the smoke, the grit, the grunge, the life. I can see everybody's exhalation. It's like, damn, alright, I'm motivated. Let's fucking go and get it. You know what I mean? It's like just one little vibration, right? That's what sound is. All of a sudden excites our entire being unto vibration itself. And we vibe with it. And it's like, damn, I can conquer the world. It's crazy, to think what it is that gives us motivation, right? I mean, what is it that pushes people and keeps people going in life? It's the fact that life is good to them, right? Like, there are obviously some people which are very, how should I put it, able to withstand, everything that life can throw at them. Even if they're at the bottom of the barrel, so to speak, they still find a way to keep going, but it definitely makes it easier if all the experiences that you're having are in direct support of, your life itself. And it's like, I think it's kind of funny that today, if people are kind of having a bad go at it, all of a sudden we start throwing a lot of crap at them. I've seen a lot of people that have been down, a pretty bad road in regards to their own self-esteem and self-confidence and stuff like that. And it's just a whole conglomeration of kind of a lot of non-supportive experiences coming together, and pretty much life is kind of saying hey dude, you're not what I'm in support of, you know what I mean? And whether or not you believe that life itself in its entirety is a conscious thing, and you're looking at it from a more rational point of view where it's it's just survival of the fittest, you know what I mean? Even that being said, the fact that you yourself aren't necessarily finding yourself in positive situations with positive outcomes and experiences means that you aren't necessarily the most fit for the environment, right? That can be a number of things. That can be based upon your morphological physique, right? Your ability to overcome the environment based upon your own physical fitness, your looks, and your attitude and personality, and how much of these things were shaped by your environment, or kind of your intrinsic birthright and inheritance, so to speak. But in a way, if these things aren't working out for you, it's kind of like life at this moment, and the arrangement of the world today is just saying yo, you're not what it is that I'm looking for. And that's how life kind of weeds out what it wants, right? And it's this very complex diagram of us kind of creating the environment which we ourselves want, and the environment influencing us, action, reaction, and then we're just reacting to the action of everything else. But it's crazy how much your experience can change when things start kind of, going your way. And I think in a lot of ways, people kind of overreact to things not going their way. And I think that society in general kind of needs to like veer away from a lot of the ways in which it's going, you know. A lot of the problems that people have are a direct cause from how we have set up like what life is, you know, today. Life itself isn't necessarily like this defined thing. I mean, if we look throughout history, we see that life was different for a lot of different people, you know, and maybe this is just our time. This is the life that, you know, kind of who we are has to go through, because, you know, it kind of makes us who we are in a certain sense. But that being said, I mean, a lot of people really take to heart that life is this like set up arrangement of things which are supposed to happen. And, you know, we all of a sudden kind of like exacerbate the situation when we see that somebody else is kind of like having a rough time of it. And it's like, you know, we think there's like a problem with the person or something like that, like, you know what I mean? And it's like, we need to medicate, we need to, you know, converse and all this other stuff. And it's like, whoa. Like, it's perfectly appropriate for them to be feeling and acting the way that they are, because life has looked them in the eye, so to speak, and kind of said pretty much like, I'm gonna turn my eye to you, and I'm not gonna give you light, and in so doing, I'm not gonna give you life. You know what I mean? So it's like, at what point in time is it appropriate for somebody's actions to be the way that they are, and that they themselves are feeling gloom, feeling glum? And you know what I mean? Even the planet itself goes through dark times, right? It's like, we're just coming out of winter here. I mean, the first day of spring was just a couple days ago, really. And, you know, the earth itself is something which transitions through a multitude of periods based upon its arrangement and, you know, the things influencing and affecting it, right? That being the celestial world above our own, right? And our world's arrangement in the entirety of space surrounding it kind of, you know, plays into the whole environment of the planet. And all of these things kind of, you know, go to play with you as well. And, you know, how you're arranged in your space and kind of what you're feeling and going through and what's affecting and influencing you definitely, you know, plays a role and plays a part. And at what point in time is it just like, you know, we give people the right to kind of be in the mindset that they are, in the state that they're in, and we don't try and fix the situation and almost make it worse. And another thing that, you know, I've made like an imaginative comparison to as of late is like, it's kind of funny. Life has become way more compartmentalized and like cuboidal. You know what I mean? It's like we each have our own little tiny like little space. And I think that to some degree it's like, you know, that's kind of just the way that it goes, right? Because we're kind of building this like tower up, so to speak. And that's kind of like the natural arrangement of a thing as it crystallizes or whatever. But, you know, we're like all these freaking animals in cages that we have to put in cages to support the multitude of people that are themselves in cages. And our diet and the lifestyle of that which we ourselves kind of prey upon is a direct, reflection of our own lifestyles at the moment, and our civilizations and society's lifestyles, right? We live these very compartmentalized and kind of restricted and restrained lives where we kind of escape through the freedom of, these imagination boxes in front of us, right? Where we kind of take ourselves away from this tiny little space to, avoid like claustrophobia. But to support like the lifestyle itself, we also have to like cage up a lot of things and pretty much put them in the exact same environment to house the amount that we need to support the people in the environment that we ourselves are kind of like co-creators of. Is it like, I'm always like wondering, like, what is the cause of it? Is this just a reactionary thing based upon this other event, or is this itself like a reaction of something else? Like, are we the direct influencers of how it is, or was this other aspect like an influencer of how it is, right? We have like this whole paradigm of hierarchy set up where through life you kind of like ascend to these different levels, right? And it's in a way kind of delegating like what people are good at during a certain period of time in their life, and allowing people to like, I guess, take advantage of another's traits which are beneficial, kind of like the higher you go up, the older you're going to be, the less you can do, which are the tasks that are required on the lower levels. So you're obviously up here, so to speak, can't necessarily support the whole building as you grow older. So, if you're going to make it, then you climb the stairs, right? And then you're kind of up there or whatever. And for that to be the case, if that's the direct motive of society in general to like kind of climb that ladder, then we need to like support that behavior and characteristic through our food sources. And like, for example, we look back upon history, right, as an example here, and we say when people weren't necessarily restricted and, I guess bound to like this very cuboidal structure of kind of towering ascension, the people were a lot more free and, without walls and all this other stuff. And you know what I mean? Like, one could say that, it's advancement, dude. It's not necessarily like a negative aspect of life, because this is an advancement of technology and society and civilization, But at what point in time does the advancement actually detract? And I feel like it's hard for us to kind of compare, like, comparatively, the experiences that people's had of life that were, living an entirely different lifestyle. Because for us, we've experienced this for so long that I feel like it would be very hard for us to probably go and live a different lifestyle. And it might be very hard for somebody who lived another lifestyle for so long to come and live our lifestyle, right? If there was literally a people's that, was kind of traversing like vast amounts of landscape every single, season, depending on the weather and the migrational habits of their food, yeah, of course they're not refined and restricted to, like a cage, kind of like we are. But at the same point in time, they don't get the pleasantries of the cage. You know what I mean? Like the differences of a zoo animal versus something in the wilderness or whatever. And obviously their diet reflects their habits of society. They themselves are like a free and nomadic peoples, able to wander around the vast amounts of landscape that they themselves inhabit, you know, and their food source reflects this lifestyle. See, so which way is it? Is it the one way or the other? Which has influenced which? Is it a direct cause of survival, where literally they have consciously thought, or not even consciously thought, you know, they just kind of went after what was present, and in so doing, the way that their society is set up is how it is? Or is it like they want to live this lifestyle, so the byproduct of doing so is the fact that they need, you know, this type of thing to support it? Kind of like actually voicing it now, it seems as though, you know, if we look at the history of humanity, it was obviously set up where, you know, things themselves are just in a direct, I guess, incentive. Things are incentivized by the need and will to survive more than anything. And so if this is what's present, then the lifestyle that they live is going to be a reflection of kind of what's present. And I guess that, you know, 21st century living kind of went against the grain with that initiative, because, you know, we ourselves were able to take advantage of the resources so effectively that in essence we kind of changed up the entirety of what was the lifestyle of living. But, you know, doing so has its upsides and its downsides. What is it? Is it an upside or is it a downside? I'm always asking myself this question. Is it an upside that, you know, we kind of like lived in these very compartmentalized lives? Or is it actually a detraction? It's very luxurious, that's for sure. And I think that a lot of people, you know, don't realize the luxury that we currently live in. But I think that's just human nature, to always be striving towards, you know, the next great peak, you know, the next great discovery. What is it that can enhance my life? Rather than realizing how enhanced it already is. But, you know, if people were like that, then we never would have made it to where it is that we are now, I guess, you know. Where is it that we're gonna go from here? Like, I always kind of think there's like this, you know, battle among people to, in a lot of ways, capture the essence of, you know, our ancestral roots. And it's ironic. The people that we call progressive are usually like these hippie conservatives, right? Because what does the word conservative mean? It means to preserve, in essence, kind of things that we've done in the past. And it's like they call themselves conservative or progressive. See, I'm gonna get everybody all confused on these words here, but I think they're really stupid. And it's like the word Democrat and Republican. If you actually study the words in an in-depth analysis, you're gonna find that the roles have switched, and then, you know what I mean? I don't necessarily think that the words are really great descriptive words for any individual, which is why I myself don't necessarily attribute any, you know, term to my beliefs. But yeah, people that are progressive, it's like they're all like, ironically, they're kind of like the hippies of whatever, which is a conservative idea, right? Because ancestrally that's how our people were, or whatever. And then you have the conservatives, which are ironically progressive. Let's, invest in future power. You know what I mean? It's like the progressives, it's like they think that they're kind of like supporting like new technological advancements in energy, but in reality they're not. It's like, oh, let's do, windmills. Dude, windmills have been around forever. Do you not realize that? This is nothing new. That shit is old. That is a conservative idea. This is not progressive. You know what I mean? And it's like they're all about this other stuff. And it's like, then on the flip side of the coin, the ones who are the conservatives, let's build nuclear power. And you know what I mean? They're like this rough grit, like, coffee drinking, in the morning, but not like Starbucks, like freaking Maxwell House instant coffee, then go hop on the tractor and freaking harvest your crop type guys. And they're like, yeah, let's invest in the nuclear and, let's freaking do all this other stuff and whatever. It's like they're actually pretty progressive, when the other side isn't. It's just like, I don't know, I think it's stupid to classify people like that. And then, you have like the Democrats and Republicans, and it's like, when you look at the actual definitions of the words, and these are just roots of like larger words, like, a republic or a democracy, and it's like, ironically, the two separate entities like contradict what the actual word itself means. Like, we look at democracy, and it's like literally every matter is voted upon by the people. There's not necessarily like a hierarchy of individuals which speak for the people. The people speak on every matter for the people. That's like democracy in a nutshell. You know what I mean? And it worked anciently in societies that didn't have that many people, because the ancient, I guess, Hellenians, or whatever you want to call them, the Hellenistic societies had enough people where they could all gather on a plateau and literally vote on every point of, discussion that came up. And it was just like, they had enough to just hand count. And eventually it had to move away to some type of authoritarian system where there was delegated authorities among each area, as the society itself kind of defined something beyond its own boundaries and borders, in which this form of society couldn't necessarily support it any longer. And so it's like the Democrats, obviously it's a root word of democracy, but ironically they themselves are in support of, a higher power. Like, that's kind of like the intrinsic characteristic between Democrats and Republicans. Republicans say like less government and more of the people power, which ironically is a term used in democracy. But then the Democrats are all about governmental, I guess, positions in power over the people. Sure, it's through a voting process where the people speak, but in essence, a true democracy wouldn't necessarily have like this hierarchy of individuals. It would be where each individual came together and voted, and then, there wasn't necessarily a head or like some sort of person representative of the people. The people represented themselves on all things. And there wasn't, all of a sudden like a separate class of individuals that went and voted on specific things as well. No, it's not like that, right? And then kind of like ironically, we have the Republicans over here, which, the term republic is something which comes about after, we see that a democratic society can't necessarily support itself once it grows beyond its own means, right? It's all fine and dandy when you have like a group of 300 people. You can count easily within a short amount of time. And people kind of hypothesize and theorize that maybe our society will, I guess, go more into a democratic format with the ease of technology at our fingertips, because, it's actually a fairly easy concept to think that people could literally vote on every issue. Like, you get a notification on your phone and you vote very quickly and effectively and efficiently on every single thing, then guess what? You literally have just pretty much taken away that whole hierarchy of people that their position is directly dependent upon them being a politician. Now everybody's a politician, and I kind of think that I myself am an acting politician. Everybody's an acting politician in your interactions with and among other people throughout life anyways. But no longer is there like this whole lifestyle supported directly upon being a politician. I think it's kind of like, really? Like, what do you do? I'm a politician. Like, should somebody really be able to support a life like and feed themselves by having that be their position? Is it really truly not an intrinsic characteristic that we ourselves all are capable of doing and pretty much do on a daily basis in regards to our interactions with everybody's wants, needs, and desires, you know, and against our own wants, needs, and desires? That's a politician's, I guess, job, and we ourselves do that every single day. Why is there a specific people and hierarchy of delegates that literally kind of feed off the rest of us and say that that's all that they do, right? So with the advancement of technology, literally, you know, it wouldn't be that hard to write a program which kind of counts up the number of everything and, you know, allows us with our great and vast numbers to participate in a truly democratic process in society. Now, the argument against this and for some sort of hybrid system was, you know, spoken of and conversed about highly when the foundation and the founding fathers wanted to set up the system that we're in right now, right? They wanted a republic. They wanted wise people that have gone through a, you know, a system of meritocracy, right? Where they're in a position of power and ability to speak because they themselves have proven themselves wise and worthy, or whatever, you know? And a true system of meritocracy is kind of not necessarily what they're going for either, because if that's the case, then, you know, we're back in kind of like ancient Roman Republic times, the Holy Roman Empire or whatever, you know, where it's like people would just go off at war and prove themselves in being able to lead and support a people and, you know, rule over a land and people, because if you're not able to do that, then you're not going to be able to conquer this certain region, go on a conquest, you know, for years. They went off for a while, and, you know, obviously if you're not a good leader, you're not going to be able to run the whole, you know, shebang or whatever, you know, and come back. Well, a lot of people would go off with their armies, and there was like a rule, you know, because they had a pretty democratic society, but, you know, there were authoritarian figures, delegates, if it were, that, you know, could speak on behalf of the wise, because what the forefathers of the United States, along with these other people, noticed is that there's something called mob rule, and it's something as to where the emotions of people get the better of them, and, you know, when people aren't necessarily thinking rationally, there's mob rule which takes place where you know, you get a lot of people riled up and take advantage of their emotions and everything like that, and then everybody grabs their pitchforks and, you know, their torches and goes to tear something down and blow it up. And it's like just the hype of the concert, you know, gets everybody all hyped up about what's going on, even though it might not be anything profound, and the person up on stage might be saying the, you know, biggest amount of bullshit ever, and they're not saying shit, but they've been hyped up to the point of where it's like, whoa, he's prophetic, you know what I mean? And so, you know, the forefathers saw this and everything like that, so there's obviously like a hierarchy of delegates where there's, you know, other processes and procedures put in place to kind of balance out the powers so that it's not mob rule as well. But you know what I mean? Like, thinking about our society today and how broad and vast and encompassing it is, like, I think that even if it was purely democratic, that you would still get that balancing, you know, factor in there, because there's such a broad range of individuals that even if there was like some sort of mob kind of effect going on over here in this region. I don't necessarily think. And the biggest way that people still to this day try to enforce and influence, I guess, mob rule is through the media. And you know what I mean? It's like all these Facebook, the crap posts that you see going up, and it's like you watch it for 10 seconds and you're like, but they're not explaining like the entirety of what's going on here. They're just trying to incite your emotions and get you all riled up and like grab your pitchfork and torches and go at this whatever it is that they're talking about. And it's just like, this is the biggest load of bullcrap ever. So people still try and utilize that tactic. But I think that with how encompassing and kind of geographically dispersed our society is, that kind of a more democratic one, which in which has been in place previously, could exist. So currently we kind of have like a modge podge of the two, where it's like kind of almost meritocracy, but you vote for your most liked person who has showcased that they are capable of doing something, right? But then what happens with like a party of delegates where there's a hierarchy of authoritarian figures which delegate, so that the system itself can run more effectively and efficiently, is that what happens is that these people that get into positions of power, all of a sudden it becomes like a monarchy, which is the direct, contradiction to democracy. Because what happens is these people in these positions of power, their bloodline ends up becoming something that is connected with this position, because this position grants them all of these, advantageous situations in their life and in the life of their families. And then what happens is you're setting people up to be born into a certain class or caste. And so what happens is, like if we look at the ancient, republics and what happens is then all of a sudden people are being born into these situations. They're being educated in these situations more so than everybody else and all this other stuff. And one could argue that this is the best way to go about it, because, obviously one person can't know all things. And so it's better to educate, certain groups of people in certain things, and then educate everybody in being able to communicate and, kind of intertwine our lives, so to speak, to forward our own advancement by cooperating with everybody else. But what happens is kind of a monarchy becomes present, even though the system is based on meritocracy and merit and, the works that you yourself do. What happens is the people that are doing the best work in regards to what it is that we're judging were born into these other situations. So obviously they're going to be better at all this other stuff, and so what happens is a bloodline becomes present within the certain castes and classes. And, that was kind of like the signifying, footnote in a lot of the falls of kind of ancient republics or whatever, because all of a sudden you have people being born into situations that think it's their right to, be in this situation, when it's like, no, that wasn't like the original foundation of the system that we're running here, the show that we're watching. That's not how originally it was set up to be. But what happens is then everybody's emotions gets attached, oh, well, his whatever did good, so why wouldn't he do good? And certain families become more publicized than other figures and stuff like that, so they're known. And obviously when you're kind of, I guess, voting for a delegate or whatever, you're obviously in a lot of cases going to pick the thing that's known to you, even if there's something better, rather than something that's unknown. It's like going to a restaurant and looking at the menu. There's in a foreign land, there's a lot of shit on that menu, but you see the one thing that you recognize and is like kind of like a safe bet, right? Based upon your history with it. And that's how it is with these families. So you're going to go with the safe bet, right? Because it's something that you're used to, you're comfortable with, and whatever. you know. And what happens is then all of a sudden there's an inheritance, you know, and then the bloodline becomes rich. And it's very difficult for other people to compete and to show what they themselves are about, because all of a sudden something is so well established. And, you know, then money literally becomes a part of the inheritance. It's like intrinsic of the DNA of this family, because it's just passed along from generation to generation. And you know what I mean? I'm going to, you know, play devil's advocate here and say that that's not necessarily a bad thing, because obviously if somebody was extremely horrible at what they did and in life, then they themselves would run their family's, I guess, money dry. They would exhaust their resources, and in their ability to actually be able to, like, manage the funds that they've inherited showcases that if they are able to do this in an effective manner and possibly even increase upon this amount, then it shows their ability to maybe do so with, you know, becoming a selfless, I guess, entity representative of the people, right? They're able to accentuate all of our funds, and in so doing increase the experience of all of our lives. So there, you know, there you go. You kind of have like this whole, I guess, you know, democracy, republic, and how the balancing act plays out, and the, I guess, kind of pitfalls of going and veering off in one direction way too far, you know. And then you have a total monarchy where it literally is set up based upon these notions, where it's like, I listened to a lot of Dan Carlin lately, and he talked about the other day, you know, the quote where it's like, you know, power corrupts and ultimate power corrupts ultimately, or whatever, where it's saying that if you truly are in a position of ultimate power, you are going to be corrupted by it. It's going to be the downfall of not only you, but everything that you're in power of, right? But he says that's not necessarily the case. Like, and we know it's not the case because there are exceptions to this rule. Historically, there are peoples and monarchs and everything like that that did a great job, not only in improving their life, but the lives of everybody that they ruled over, right? And one could argue that a direct monarchy is the best way to go about it, because you are in, I guess, a position of extreme delegation. You know, we look at the last names of people, and in a lot of cases, people's last names are coming from their historical jobs. What did your family do, right? You know, they were carpenters. Their last name's Carpenter or whatever. You know what I mean? They were builders and all this other stuff. And so what happens is people are born into these situations, and they're born into these different pretty much jobs. And your lineage becomes something, you know, your DNA, your inherent genetic material and makeup becomes something directly influenced by the type of work. And what happens is we get a specific type of peoples which are born into a situation, they're educated on it from birth, so they're, you know, able to focus all of their energy and efforts in regards to this single underlying notion of understanding a concept and being able to apply these concepts in real life situations. And they do a lot better job than trying to educate everybody on everything and then have somebody figure out what it is that they're going to do and want to do and whatever. And, you know, rather than people just knowing, this is what my family does, this is what we've done for generations, this is what we do. And, you know, over time, our pretty much population of our family, and even, you know, going so far into our structural DNA, has become something of like a fitness factor in regards to what it is that we do, because we've, you know, selectively bred ourselves to be the best at what it is that we do, right? And, you know, there might be tons of different factors involved, and all of a sudden it's like this anthill society where it's like there's all these different types of ants, but each different type of ant is delegated towards a certain task. You know, ants, termites, bees, all those different types of societies where you look at it like that. But there are a lot of arguments that say, like, you know, if you actually do have a really good monarch which understands that his experience or her experience in life is directly related to the experience of all the people in the land that they rule over, then they themselves are going to be a selfless leader and go about influencing change for the better in everybody's lives upon the land, because they know that they want to wander around, and enjoy the beauty of that which they have built, so to speak, through extreme delegation and, I guess, specialization, extreme specialization, and then kind of educating everybody more so in communication and being able to cooperate and function as an entire group, rather than trying to educate everybody on everything. The one thing that everybody gets educated on is communication. And then whatever else you get educated on is based upon your ancestral, lineage of what it is that your family does, which you're obviously the best at doing because your family's still here and, your DNA has survived by, going through this process. And of course, there's going to be a weeding out factor as society changes and, life itself cuts down mountains and raises new ones. Like, that's just how it goes. The flow of the river changes. And, there's going to be sad moments and moments of, great profundity. And then all of a sudden, you have some other forms of life which come up as well. You have like the anarchists, which is just like no form of governance. It's like almost like an extreme democracy if you think about it, because the only person which is the voter that truly matters is you. So if we actually enact a true form of anarchy, but let's hypothesize and say that this form of anarchy, this system set up on pretty much, like, it's ironic because you say no governance, but there's no such thing. Like, even for the family unit to exist, there's some form of governance, because there's a hierarchy of individuals which delegate tasks among the family members, and there you have it. There's a form of government in hand. And, the same thing is with businesses. They're just acting form of governments. So ironically, like, a true form of anarchy can't truly exist, but kind of like, for the sake of discussion, we're going to say that it's almost to the extent, like, obviously we can't get that far in that direction, but if we were to push ourselves in that direction as far as possible, there's not even like an acting force to enforce the rule of a democratic society. The only acting force that exists is the will of the individual. And if we say that some way or another a society has been able to survive this form of lifestyle for, a lengthy amount of time, what's going to happen is that everybody's going to be an expert politician, because if people have been able to live for so long utilizing this way of life, and that's totally, based upon their own whims and desires, then obviously everybody's going to be an acting politician. And it's going to be an extreme democracy, but there's no acting head upon what is voted upon. And the votes themselves aren't necessarily like a raise of the hand or a check in a box on certain issues. It's literally your interactions and your actions in life. That is your vote, because you're saying, I'm wanting to do this. I want it to be this way. Therefore, I'm acting upon it. So that's how I want it to be. And that's your vote. And that's, kind of going down the extreme road of everybody's will is taken into consideration. And what comes about and what proliferates itself in that society is, in essence, the majority vote. Even though people didn't necessarily, consciously take a vote on it, their actions upon society and in the environment have come to the conclusion that this is the way we're going to live life. And ironically, there might be forms of governance, rise up, right? We say forms of governance. What does that mean? It means to watch over and to enforce a rule. Well, one of the biggest forms, or I guess one of the biggest factors that comes up, or examples of a society having a form of governance, is like a police. Because all of a sudden we are enforcing rule with this specifically delegated, I guess, body of individuals, which their entire purpose in life is to enforce the rule and will of the majority, right? Even in a totally anarchist society that we're trying to go down this road here, there might be a group of individuals which come together as a group we might not call them a police body, but in essence, that's what they are. They're policing the land. And they themselves become like a clan, a club, a gang, whatever have you, whatever you want to call it, that enforce what it is that their will is. And they themselves are political activists, and that they communicate with each other as a group towards what it is that they all want. And in so doing, they become enforcers upon the land. And then what you're going to have is, if this society, like we talk about, is able to proliferate itself, then eventually you're going to have people that kind of are delegated to taking upon different roles. And this anarchist system has actually gone into a system of delegation now, where people are doing what they're best at, and they're supporting each other in all of these endeavors, because they realize that for their society to proliferate itself and function as a group, you know, that's going so far as to say that they understand and realize this, that like it kind of needs to be that way. If you want to do a certain thing in your entire life, but then still have this over here, then there needs to be some form of, you know, tasking system set up in place. And so we're going to see all of a sudden this tasking system coming about. And another thing that I kind of wanted to talk about, you know, I was talking about earlier before I got into this whole discussion, the ironies of what we term things as today. You know, you have socialism and communism, where our system today is set up upon the intrinsic nature of people being selfish. Okay? Like, we understand that everybody's trying to get ahead of everybody else, and it's an extreme form of competition. But we justify this competition in our minds by saying it's the best way to advance our society. We have these kind of, you know, balancing things set up in place to balance out everybody's competition, so it's not like just a madhouse of everybody trying to kill and compete. We're kind of all killing each other, like, you know, indirectly through our competition, but we justify it by saying it's the best way, you know, to take advantage of everybody's greed for the benefit of everybody. You know, people like write when they connect with their better self about how is it that we can form the utmost, you know, best of society, and it's by understanding that intrinsically people are bad, so let's transmute everybody's intrinsic greed to, in essence, contribute to everybody. And that's kind of how we have that set up today. We're expecting the worst, but we're making the best of the worst by taking advantage of the worst of people and making it so that people that are driven by the worst motives, in essence, you know, have a trickle-down effect, or, you know, a trickle-around effect on everybody else in the society, right? And, like, the early forms of the reformers, or the revolutionaries that talk about, you know, communism and socialism, let's look at the words, you know, like we were before. Community, communism. You know, community is not such a bad word. You know, to be social, right? All of a sudden we add these isms or ists on the back of them, and it's like a cyst, or it's like a, you know, an ism. I don't know. But like, the words themselves used in other contexts aren't bad words. And it's like, to be social. Yeah, it's good to be social, right? I mean, some people will argue that if you don't have some social aspect within your life, then you're going to cease to live. You're going to die due to the fact that, you know what I mean, you're not being nurtured by your peers, and you're not nurturing your peers. You're not receiving public approval and being appreciated, you know, and like we were talking about before, by the world for what it is that you're doing. You know, and then communism, right? And some of these ideals kind of mix and intermingle previous things that we've talked about, you know, but it's based upon the best of people, right? If we talk about capitalism and it's all like, yeah, I want that, and that being said, I gotta freaking compete and get and go and grab, and, you know, if you look around or open your ears and kind of go to some of these unregulated places where people are more so speaking about all these topics in the open, like internet forums, People are going to oink at the capitalists and call them pigs, right? Because it's like, gimme, 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 because that's the way that, it's based and built up upon. And they call themselves, pretty much more philanthropists, because they're saying, we're all about the community, communism, right? And there's no like set up system of governance. It's like there's this, it's such a weird concept to wrap your head around, because if you go so far down one side, it ends up being very similar to the other side that we talked about over here, but the intent and motive of the people has been extremely different to get there. Like, we can talk about, for an example of this, capitalists or conservatives and Democrats within our own society in the United States. Democrats and conservatives. One will say, less government. One will say more government. One's pro-business. One's for regulation on business, right? Well, if we go down this entire road of business, the United States is a corporation. If you look at a lot of the United States documents, it'll say like the LLC or whatever, you know what I mean, of the United States of America. It is a business. It functions as a business. It's a governing body. And so ironically, if you go down this road of, extreme capitalism and conservatism, as the terms are used in today's society, very pro-business, loose regulations, less government, those bodies themselves, to function as a living body and be economically viable, become functioning governments, right? They delegate all these different tasks out to all these people and become a functioning government. And so ironically, we've come to the same conclusion, although we've taken a different road. We've kind of went all the way around the world, and we come to this point right here again. And I had a very interactive discussion one day with somebody. I'm sitting out in front of the gym now, with somebody in the gym one day, and he was talking about, you can have two kingdoms, and you can have one built up by somebody who's extremely selfish, and you can have one built up by somebody who's extremely selfless. He said, ultimately, if somebody's extremely selfish, but they recognize that for their selfish desires to come about, they themselves must, in essence, govern or rule their kingdom very effectively and efficiently, because their life's gonna, their life experience, if you don't want to see poverty-stricken people poor, people dying, people sick all over the place, and it's gonna all come around to bite you in the butt, you know what I mean? There's like an ancient hyperbole where it's like, and he died by his own sword. When a lot of people say that historically, they don't mean that he literally committed suicide or accidentally fell upon his sword. It means that they died by their own hand, by their own doing. You know what I mean? It's karma. That's just the way that the world works, because if you're going around doing all this stuff, eventually it's going to come back to you rationally, not some mystical, metaphorical way. Like, literally, it's going to detract from your life as well, because your life is built upon the experience of everybody else around you. So in so doing, in affecting everybody else's life in a positive way, it's going to affect your life in a positive way, because you're going to increase the experience of your entire environment. And in so doing, it's going to increase the experience of your environment as you walk through all these other environments, right? That's, somebody who's rational but selfish, they're directly motivated upon their own experience in life, but they understand and realize that for me to have the best life possible, if I'm going about this in a selfish way, is to increase everybody else's life as well. Because I don't want to go around and see people taking dumps all over the place and, all this other crap all over, and just poverty-stricken and poor people and whatever, what have you, because I don't want to see that. I don't want to smell that. I don't want to have to deal with that, because I'm going to have to be an acting politician like we all are. And if I'm going to try and go over here to do this, I have to go and interact and go through all this other junk and, judge the desires and wills of other people and try and, cooperate with them through politics, my own personal politics, to accomplish my goal here. And if I'm very selfish but understanding, then I'm going to realize that I need to somehow increase the lives of everybody else around me to increase my own existence in life. You know, and then we have the selfless motive where it's like, but see, they become the same thing, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, if you go so far down one road, it's almost like the other. It's like, you know, you ever touched like something extremely cold? And you know what I mean? Like, realistically, they're kind of like the same thing, but I haven't ever touched something that's so cold that it will literally burn you. But I've been burned before, and I've touched things that are extremely cold. You know what I mean? And it's like almost like, whoa, it's like the same stinging sensation upon my skin and my feeling, right? That's the same with all these political ideals and ideas. You get to one pole, and all of a sudden, you know, the yin becomes the yang or whatever, and it's like you go inside the yin and there's yang, or whatever have you, you know what I mean? Something's extremely cold, all of a sudden it's burning. It fucking burns the shit out of you, right? And I mean, we can get totally scientific and say like, you know, even though it feels the same, it's still a little bit different, right? And then like the guy I was having this discussion with, he said, yeah, you know, you could actually, and it was surprising to me. This was an older gentleman. We were both sitting in the dry sauna. We ended up sitting in there a lot longer than we had, you know, previously intended to do, because we got into these engaging conversations with each other. And he was like, oh, I never thought about that. But then he's like, yeah, I could see that. And then his rationale behind that actually still being the wrong way to go about it is, he said you could still feel, you know, underneath it all, like how somebody was directly motivated. Like the air of the place, the atmosphere in this kingdom directly motivated by somebody of selfish desire would, you know, be kind of like a stale or, you know, like stingy air, right? Rather than somebody who's totally loving and caring. It's like somebody fighting for something you know they don't truly believe in. You can tell, you know. You can almost always tell. It's like, he really doesn't believe in this. He's just utilizing it to accomplish this other thing over here. You know, their words may say one thing, but their emotions and actions kind of deceive them, right? It's like, so that was his overall thing. But I think at some point in time, if you had somebody that was kind of, you know, I guess originally motivated by these selfish desires, if they were totally understanding, then they would realize all this stuff, and the air itself would be something that was positive. They'd work on, you know, like accentuating the environment through all of these different things to increase everybody's, you know, feeling of well-being within this society, so that as they walked and wandered through this society, they could glory at what it is that, you know, they themselves were, I guess, a part in accomplishing through this delegated system where, you know, through specialists and increasing everybody's cooperation and communication, you can accomplish great things. So, you know, there we have like communism and socialism, where it's like people are directly motivated by, you know, selfless things and selfless actions, and there's an extreme lack of government. But like I said before, it's like if we get down that road so far, you can never reach it. It's like trying to reach the speed of light, right? You know what I mean? It's like you become heavier and heavier and whatever. It's like your mass increases exponentially as you approach this point or whatever. That's how the physics of it go, you know, the equation, right? Because as soon as we reach that point, it's like humanity can't even exist anymore, because like the family unit and structure itself is based upon like this hierarchy of delegates. Even a mother and their child, you know what I mean, is based upon like this hierarchy of governance. Otherwise, everything is just gonna die, you know, even if it's like, and so, but then ironically, like motivated out of the most selfless desire. And see, we have to alter our conceptions of what civilization is supposed to be, because there are certain forms of civilization that couldn't necessarily exist without this form of delegation and hierarchy set up in place. You know, and it almost reminds me of like a couple books that I've read. Like there's that one book where people go underground because there was like a nuclear holocaust, and they're like trying to escape from this place because like their fuel's running out and all this junk. And what happens is like people are given jobs, like they're assigned roles and tasks rather than them kind of like, you know, And see, I'm going to go down another point here where the 2 points on the opposite poles become equal. So, you know, you have like this governance system set up, and it's almost like what's that book? Where it's like, you know, the televisions rule people and stuff like that. Or they don't rule people, but they're like used as spying devices set up by the government and like all this other things. And like children are like the parents' greatest fears because they're gonna like narc on their parents for like, you know, being rebellious for the government or whatever. But it's like, ironically, the government is like ruled by these set of people. And in this town under the ground where these kids are trying to like find a way to escape out of this place, and they have to go and figure out all these different things and like whatever, and like they're assigned different jobs. Like, even if you believe in this, like, you know, liberal view of life where you yourself are the one in control of finding your purpose in life and your job, that which you're most suited for, ironically, what's going to end up happening is the people themselves are still going to give you a task. You know what I mean? Even if it's not like this system where you can consciously see, like, here you go, like, this is your job. It's on a piece of paper. Like, you know what I mean? Like, in terms of success, people are going to support you viably by giving you a way of life in regards to what it is that you're best at. So in a way, you're still going to be chosen, because obviously if things aren't working out to an extreme degree in regards to me wanting to do and be something, I'm not going to viably be able to live a life that way. I'm not going to make any money off of it, so I'm going to die. Right? So if we're like rational people to the degree of I'm going to do what I'm best suited for and also talented for and all this other stuff, in essence, life is still choosing you for that position, because, you know, obviously if you're able to live for a certain amount of time, then it means that, you know, you're doing what it is that you're kind of best at and most supported in. So in essence, you're still being chosen by everybody for this thing, because the support and the choosing is being shown in it being a viable way of your living. Otherwise, you just die and perish because you weren't able to make a living off of it and nobody was supporting what it is that you're doing. You know? But yeah, I mean, yep, I'm gonna go and hit the gym now. I'm kind of warmed up, and gonna pump some good vibes through my system, and, you know, vibrate myself up onto another level. You know what I mean? I'm gonna conquer. I'm gonna go forth and conquer. Hey, what's up, y'all? It's time for that post-workout preaching session. Know what I'm saying? Been in there, worked out the kinks with my physique. While doing so, trying to work out the kinks of what it is that I said earlier as well. You know, earlier I was talking about approaching things from another angle, you know? And in my last post and pre-workout preaching session, I was talking about how I didn't like the fact that a lot of historians and scientific figures in the field of research were categorizing and classifying people within, you know, a certain category, when in essence, the deeper you look, the more you're going to see, right? And then at the end of my preaching session, I went as far as to start classifying and categorizing people for the sake of discussion. You know what I mean? So it's like, even though I was saying that, obviously I was able to recognize and realize the approach and the point of doing so for the sake of being able to have a conversation about something. Sometimes you have to generalize, otherwise you can't actually ever hypothesize, you know? So anyways, also in regards to what I was saying earlier today about, you know, I guess communism, and also the fact that in some regards a monarchy is something which works effectively and very fluently within society. However, what ends up happening, the destroying force behind monarchy, in my own opinion, is opinion, right? Because let's say we have somebody that comes about that doesn't necessarily want to do it this way, their life. They want to experience life. I've been granted life, and with my life, I'm going to live life. I'm not going to live the way that everybody else is doing it and the way that I've been told to do it. And, you know, that's opinion. And then also I was saying, even if we have like a selfish oligarchy or, you know, I guess like authoritarian dictator or something to that degree, you know, some autocracy, I don't know, whatever you want to say, right? We're getting to the underlying notion that there's either a single person or a group of very powerful people in charge, right? And they kind of do things their way. Now, even within regards to my discussion previously about how something to that degree can actually work very effectively, because, you know, there's going to be people that agree with what they're doing, there's going to be people that disagree, but if they're actually selfish and understand the importance of selflessness in regards to creating a society that's not only for their own well-being, but in doing so, they're going to create a society which is for the well-being of everybody else also. The problem with that is that opinion comes into play. You know, let's say that I have a town that I'm in charge of, and I'm pretty much the authority in regards to everything. You know, I dictate, you know, the artwork and the statues and everything that, you know, pervades through my society, that permeates, you know, this area. Well, even in my mind, you know, even though in my mind, that's what I think is most important towards giving people this sense of experience and livelihood, and creating, you know, this sense of acknowledging the moment for being something that's very special, unique, and positive. In a lot of other minds, that might not necessarily be the case. And in overwhelming amounts, if the people are antagonistic or showing opposition to what it is that I'm doing, then obviously, you know, we have another situation come into play where it's like, you know, does the ruler go about things his way or in the way in which he thinks or knows the people want it to go in? And obviously there's a balancing act here as well, because what if the person truly knows, because of their experiences and them being brought up in this background, they know much more than what the people do, and they're much more able to judge the circumstance and situation and act appropriately, right? We have this whole thing about mob rule versus, you know, wise delegates or what have you, right? And so opinion plays a huge part in that, because some people like different flavors, right? And if we have a dictator come in and, you know, he orders pasta, he says to the, you know, the waiter, I want a plate of pasta, whatever. And then what's brought back isn't necessarily pasta in regards to his definition of what pasta is. Then all of a sudden we have a conflict arise between somebody trying to impose their definition, their dictation, and dictate, you know, through what the dictionary says, what things are, how they should be, and, you know, the way it is, right? So all of a sudden, you know, we've kind of cut out a lot of the color in life and made it much more bland and, you know, distasteful, right? So there's that. And then another big thing to point out, in running a society based upon efforts of the community in regards towards the social well-being or the well-being of the community, right? We kind of have these two things which go down one road and split, whatever. We're not going to get, you know, too in depth into that. But in essence, right, we have Plato talking about, you know, a utopian system of society where everybody's for the well-being of everybody else. And then we have somebody like Machiavelli come about and say, no, we have to take advantage of the intrinsic greed of everybody, right? We have to count on the fact that people are going to act out of place and steal and cheat and lie and do all these other things, and put these, you know, checks and balances in place so that in essence we can twist around somebody's greed to the benefit of all mankind. Now, in the fact that if society is set up so as people go about their daily lives based upon, you know, I'm going to go and do this because I know that it's what needs to be done for everybody. And what happens is then people start saying, well, I'm doing more than them, they're not doing anything. And, you know, society can no longer support the specific type of civilization that we're in. Now, that being said, I don't necessarily know if this is something which, changes based upon the type of society. Because if we say that everybody is free to go about and do their own desires for the day, things are going to live and die. That's just a fact of life. And if through your own political purveyance, you are able to persuade people to support your way of living, you know what I mean? People go and do whatever their whimsical desires are, right? And then they say, well, he doesn't do anything, you know what I mean? Well, then he's not going to get anything, you know what I mean? But in essence, like, we can collapse upon a greater argument about, the livelihood of everything on the planet. And in essence, things have to, like, I guess, contribute something, even if that's a conversation that people enjoy listening to, right? Or just the presence of somebody, like their funny quirks or their quirky behavior or what have you, you know what I mean? Like, in a lot of cases, that's actually valuable, And the fact goes, like, down to the degree as to where a lot of these societies which kind of have this idealistic goal where this is the purveying culture, what happens is a lot of, I guess, people get in charge that they are saying, like, I'm going to enforce. And see, then all of a sudden it's kind of like an ironic situation where it's like, this system is built upon the well-being of others, but then all of a sudden they take away the looking at the individual and they look at the community as a whole. And then what ends up happening is they justify the ends, you know what I mean? Through the means taking place in the moment, where all of a sudden fear tactics and this enforcement of work ethic is involved to, I guess, commit people towards things. And then all of a sudden it's like this ironic thing that contradicts itself, where the society is supposed to be something that's set up where everybody kind of goes and, commits to a certain aspect of livelihood, for the betterment of the community. But then all of a sudden it doesn't work that way, because then we have this balancing act within people's own, understanding of what life is and what community is and what life itself requires. And then so we get people that come about this saying, and ironically, they'll justify and they'll still classify themselves in this understanding of governance, because they say, the ends justify the means, and it's for the betterment of the whole. And so all of a sudden you have people committing acts of atrocities towards specific groups of people, and then they justify it. And then what happens is fear pervades the entirety of the society, because then people feel like they can't act out of place, right? And yeah, it's my post-workout preaching session.